this whole checkout process is you completely in the dark as a customer.
And it had reached a point where I'm just like, I want us to have something that's consumer facing. I want us to have something that people can look at that has a total on it, that has the items on it. Just basically the same technology we had pre-Shopify. I'd like to get that back.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Highs to approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep bringing comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dale Bush.
None of those names
The
mean
Beat
anything
has
to
learned
me.
that the entire marketing and PR staff and half of editorial have been let go, including publisher Nachi Marsham.
Oh man, I remember when they took over and people were celebrating the choice. And there was all sorts of, like, oh, this is somebody who's going to steer the ship. Huh. I wonder if it's because the IDW originals didn't do well.
With this company, I always think it has more to do with their media deals. Like, a lot of the things that drive the stock and a lot of things that make them profitable or unprofitable are, we have a TV show on, or we had to make a bunch of pilots or pitch decks and no TV show came out of it, or we couldn't license it.
I just don't think of IDW as a Hollywood launching ground.
Me neither, and maybe that's
but
part
hey,
of it.
30 Days a Night.
Yeah,
or
that's their main thing.
Also,
like
Lock and
Winona
Key.
Earp or whatever.
And
like they've had a few shows like that where it's like,
what was that other vampire one?
That other vampire one.
Yeah, they had there was literally a TV show about vampires, V Nation.
Okay.
That was theirs.
Yeah, and again, so I mean, there's been shows and they've had things on networks. It's never anything I've watched. But everything I would read when it would be in, like, The Beat or wherever would always be very focused on, like, the company is hemorrhaging money because they don't have a TV show on the air or they haven't gotten a movie picked up or whatever. Like, the publishing aspect of it, I don't know that was a huge deal. In fact, IDW original stuff was very... like, we need IP that we can license. So doing licensed books for other companies, you know, losing Hasbro or whatever was almost, I don't know if this is true or maybe this is just reading between the lines, was like a strategic move of like, making stuff for Hasbro isn't making things that we can turn into movies and TV shows.
Also, they're probably expensive for their licenses, and I wonder what kind of return they get because those books sell incremental for us.
But when they launched, they were very big. I assume it'll be the same way for whatever company or imprint or publisher has them next. It'll launch really big, and then by like year 2 or 3, it'll be like a few over club, if that, you know?
See, you're always so good at that kind of stuff, whereas if I were saying that, I would be... I'm sure wherever they land, which I have no idea who that could possibly be, we have no insider information, kind of over the top, wink and a nod to say, no, we know who has them, we're just not saying, because we're not supposed to.
Yeah, I'd rather not spotlight it.
Well, that's just a difference between you and I.
It's true.
Yeah. I was being hypothetical.
You were.
I wasn't outright saying I absolutely know where Transformers are ending up.
No, or who's doing it. Yeah, the...
writing and drawing.
Yeah, the main thing, though, is that licensed stuff in general has that kind of tendency to launch really big and then kind of decline rapidly or slowly, depending on the brand.
Did you just describe every single comic in today's market?
No, because, I mean, there's ones that can find a footing or maintain an audience. I mean, obviously, everything drops over time, but, like, the way that licensed stuff hits really big, or it can hit really big, depending on the property. But then you look around and you're like, I don't know what Marvel does with Star Wars to make people care about it again. I don't know. I mean, that's a book that you know, the first issue of the Jason Aaron, John Cassaday Star Wars, you know, 1 million copies over like 150 exclusive variants or whatever, but sure.
I think each state got like 4 variant covers.
What was the subscription box thing? What was that one that used to be called?
Oh, man. Loot Crate.
Loot Crate. Yeah, Loot Crate bought, you know, 300,000 for like probably pennies on the dollar because that's what they always pay for that stuff.
Loot Crate, remember that?
That used to be a thing that kept like that was a big push for a lot of publishers is getting your first issue in Loot Crate. Not so hysterically, not so that it would create a large audience because the people who got it in Loot Crate would just go like, oh, a comic book, and never follow up if they read it at all. And not because you were necessarily selling a lot of copies, because again, Loot Crate is not paying what Challengers pays for copies of comic books.
Right, of course.
But because you could crow about like, oh, we 300,000 copies of our first issue were sold. Like, yeah, but 2/3 of that might have been Loot Crate, and so it's irrelevant. But you can still say it.
I remember when I was working on Creepsville in the 90s, just doing background inks and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was selling like 5,000 copies an issue. And that was huge for a little book out of Go-Go Publishing in the suburbs of Chicago.
I think it's still pretty big for a lot of publishers.
Yeah, but for much bigger publishers is the point.
I was looking through the new catalog because all the new catalogs came out this week, and I was looking through previews, and I get to the Aftershock section, and the Aftershock section is just like, hey, do you guys know that we publish stuff from Steve Orlando? That's like 2 pages. And it's like,
last month's was...
None of these are new. Like, there's no new comics in the Aftershock section. There's only a few different, like, author spotlights and their younger readers stuff.
Yeah, that's what last month was, the same thing.
But they still somehow... Because I guess you get, if you're a publisher or a premier or whatever tier they're at, you get X amount of pages.
Or maybe you have to pay for X amount of pages. Or maybe you paid up front for X amount of pages.
I would guess that... But basically,
look at Avatar every month.
Right, but that's the thing. I'm looking at this and I'm like, you would not pay for these pages unless you were getting them anyway with your deal. Like, I think, and again, I don't know anything about this, but my assumption looking at the catalog is that certain publishers have a certain amount of space they get allocated every month. So however many books you want to list in there...
It's up to you.
Right. So if it's just relist stuff, I don't know, it's just relist stuff, like it has been with Avatar for like the last 6 years.
Going through the catalog, and there's so many stores that never look at the back half of the catalog. That was always and the catalog, the previous catalog is very different than it used to be. The way it has publishers arranged.
Almost monthly.
Yeah. And how they lose people all the time. And
yeah. Like, for people who haven't seen a previous catalog in a while, how it normally...
It sounds like you said in the wild, but I know you were trying to say in a while. I know.
Or in the wild. I mean, if you haven't gone to a shop and seen a previous catalog...
I mean, you're not going to see a previous catalog at Challengers.
No, we don't
unless
stock it on the shelf unless...
We have it behind the counter, but
unless
that's ours.
Somebody who subscribes to it doesn't subscribe to it anymore, and then suddenly we have an extra one. How it used to look 2019 and earlier is that you would have...
Do you think we're going to start telling time instead of like BC? It's going to be, PC or BC before COVID.
Before COVID. How it looked was that you would have the premier publishers in the front, and that would be like it was Dark Horse first, and then Image, and you'd have over the course of it Dynamite and Boom and a few other publishers of stature. DC and Marvel would be their own separate catalogs, and then you'd have the kind of what Patrick had called the back of the catalog, which is every other publisher. So not premier publishers, not the ones with branded pages necessarily, but like alphabetically, like Aardvark Vanaheim to Z2 Comics, like, and everybody in between. Some people would sometimes get little branded sections. Titan might have a little branded section, and Avatar again would have their section. But in general, like
Archie brands it.
Yeah, Aspen Comics inexplicably still has a branded section. But now it's shifted around a little bit, where you still have the premier publishers in the front, all the people that Diamond carries exclusively and that have deals with Diamond. So it starts with Image, and then it goes to, I can't remember who else.
Dark Horse? No, Boom, because it's alphabetical. Image then, first, then Boom.
Yeah. Then after,
definitely not Dark Horse anymore.
So basically, then after those kind of branded sections, you have a little subsection of like Dark Horse and IDW, because they are not exclusively carried by Diamond, but they are carried by Diamond. Yeah.
They're just alphabetical in the back.
No. I looked at the catalog yesterday.
The one I just finished, they were just
no
shoved in the back alphabetically.
Yeah, no.
As you said, changes by month. Yeah, I have not looked through the new previews.
They moved them to the front of that back of the catalog section, I guess because of prominence.
But I mean, did you call out the FOC section where it's Titan and like, so it goes Image and then Boom and a couple else, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then there's another section right away, which is the not Premier Publishers, but FOC
Yeah, they
publishers.
have another name for that, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know if Titan's there. I think Titan is still in the back of the catalog. But yeah, it's a weird mix of, like, who they have a deal with and then kind of everybody else. And that back section is generally the section that historically stores would not even look at.
Right. So my point was there's a lot of books that some stores never carry. And never touch.
Quarterly.
Sure. And, you know, it used to be a point of pride how we would always make sure to go through the whole catalog and look. But there are legitimate publishers, or let me rephrase that. I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying they're legitimate at publishing. There are legitimately publishers that I will never give a second look to.
Sure.
Like a Boundless.
Yes.
Like American Mythology.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to say.
Those are literally publishers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm skipping that whole section.
There's at least 7 or 8 publishers I could name but will not that are subscription only. I don't care what they carry. I don't care what books they put out.
Right.
It's
Sure.
subscription only. I don't care.
It would, like, what a conflict it would be for me if, let's say, American Mythology was publishing Grimjack. Right? I mean, we'd carry it.
You would carry it, yes.
It's not like I have a personal bias against them. We just have had no success with their books and don't see shelf space available.
Well, yeah,
challengers.
A lot of it is just the size of the market and how difficult it is to be profitable with single issue comics that my default for every single book is no, and you have to convince me to change that to a yes.
And you have to have that attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't start with like, yeah, I'm going to get that. Oh, no, I'm talking myself out. Like, no, there's no money. There's no money for these things. There's too many books. Marvel has too much stuff. DC has too much stuff. There's too many big books coming out from Image and Dark Horse and IDW and Boom and so on. That when you're a lower tier
from Image and Dark Horse and Boom and IDW,
and then when you're a kind of a lower tier publisher, market share wise, if nothing else, then yeah, I don't know that there's going to be room on the shelves for you this week alone, which was not a gigantic week necessarily of releases. The comic section was way too full.
Luckily, there was very few graphic novels, so we didn't have to compete with that.
Right, but then
we
we
still
also
had to fan those.
And because we had like 7 different Spider-Verse
pop vinyls, and we had 2 Marvel Legends series.
Yep, last week's wave and this week's wave, and then we also had a shelf for catalogs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was lucky that everything fit. And that's not even, again, a week where it was huge releases or, you know, a lot of big books. It was just like a lot of covers for a lot of comics, and that's it. That fills up your whole wall.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess that's kind of the subsection of why it's easy / incumbent upon us to not stock smaller publishers is that you're not just competing with like the books that Marvel's publishing or the books that DC's publishing. You're competing with the covers that Marvel's producing and the covers that Dark Horse is producing.
Oh yeah,
and
I mean,
so on.
when we first broke
space,
down
man.
this new release section, the covers weren't nearly as out of control.
No.
And
DC would do 2 a month, whatever,
yeah.
or 2 per issue, and Marvel would do stuff occasionally, but we didn't.
Next week is Batman 900, so there's, I think we're getting 9 covers. I'm sure there's like more we didn't order.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
We don't do that. Like when they do the Decades covers now, we don't go all in on those anymore because we got burned.
Yeah, and on top of that...
Not that they do those anymore, but I'm saying they do that many
When
covers.
I'm doing FOCs and I'm looking at the raw number of copies that we're getting for open order covers, it's just like, you look at it and you're thinking like, oh, well, I'll get 3 of this one or 5 of that one, and then suddenly you get to the end and you're like, wow, we're ordering 20% more copies of this book than we did the previous issue. I don't know if we can sell that. Let's not push it any farther than that.
And you can't use that issue's number as ordering metric for the next issue.
And I think I've mentioned this before.
Anomaly.
When I'm doing FOCs, the thing I look at as far as sales for the last issue is just the A cover.
Yeah.
And then order numbers for the variants for the next issue are decided on a case-by-case basis. It cannot be based on, well, we sold 6 copies of the B cover last month or 6 copies of the C cover last month. it's all different now. The covers are all different. The artists are all different. It doesn't make a difference. Like, the few things that I can sort of track it to are, like, if, like, Jenny's doing Poison Ivy or Harley Quinn variants. Like, if Jenny sold 5 copies of the last issue's variant, probably going to sell 5 copies of the next issue's variant. Everything else is, again, case-by-case basis.
This is completely unrelated, but they put up the art for Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise #1 today for sale.
Okay.
The Tradmore.
No, I saw that. It came out like 6 months ago.
Original art went up for sale today.
What size is it? Do you know?
I think regular comic size.
Okay. I don't know if he draws super small, like on super small pieces or super large pieces.
I think it's just regular comic size. The average, can you give me an average price for a basic page?
An interior page?
Yeah.
From Trad?
Yeah.
For that book or just in general?
For that book.
$2,000?
$8,000.
Jesus Christ.
That's an average price. I saw one that
There's
was...
double page spreads in that thing. I can't imagine.
Yeah, those
That's like
double
a mortgage.
page spreads go for upwards of $25,000.
Yeah. Damn.
Covers, $50,000.
That doesn't shock me.
Yeah. There was one page I saw for $7,000, but most everything else is like $10,000, $12,000 a page. Jesus. And they're not all splash pages.
No, I read at least the first issue of that book, but even his like weird landscapes and stuff, you're just like, Jesus Christ, this is gorgeous. And yeah, man, if money was no object, like,
sure.
Yeah, I would like to own a piece of Tradmore artwork, like from Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise. Yeah,
Tradmore is one of those people that we consider a Challengers person because we had an art show for Luther Strode.
We did.
Back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah. Like he was, but what I mean by a Challengers person is that he was on our radar. His parents flew in to surprise him.
That's adorable. That's adorable.
So he was on our radar back then. He was like 24.
He was a little boy.
Something?
He was a tiny little boy in his tiny school shorts with his tiny cap.
You're thinking of Angus Young, who's a very old man.
Maybe.
But I mean, he was somebody that we've been aware of basically his whole career.
It's true, yeah. And
it is amazing to see him doing this kind of work and getting this kind of recognition, getting this kind of money for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in no way was this a, God, I can't believe what it's going for. I'm like, this was a, oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah, good for him. It's great. I'm glad that book found as much success as it did, and it clearly, it has something for the aftermarket that people are going to be very excited to own. That's great.
It's a new month, and it's now time to thank our Patreon supporters, including our annual patrons, Becca Hilburn and Joseph Coco, Brent Helt, Dal's mom Diane Bush, Philip Sablik from Boom Studios, Jose Villagomez, Josh Crowley of Westfield Comics, our bestest wrestling watching pal, Michael Lee, Michael Romanenko, our patrons who have created their own tier, Andrew, Drew Troit Comics, Aaliyah, Bridget K. Neville, Chris Burton, Claudine Neville, our other generous patrons from the Say My Name pledge level, Ben-Hur Benedict Calaguas, Brad Brooks from Dumb Shit Done Well, Manage Comics Own, Brian Garside, Christopher Haith, Drew Triner and Ashley Edwards, Challengers Reservist Fallon Mackerline, my brother George Brower, Heidi D., Holly Aitchison, Jacob Sorelli of Kamikaze, Josh Trigg, Mark Hammond of Oh Yeah Comics, Margie, Keith, Logan, and Malcolm Springham, Matt Armstrong, Mitchell Davies of All Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, Morgan Dynamite Perry, Nick Baldwin, my longtime pal Robert Burns, Ron Payne, Sean Bowers, Tad Eggleston and Johnny Williams, Thomas Nagovin of Century Guild, Walt Grogan, Walt's Comic Shop from Berlin, Germany. And if you want to hear your name thanked on this very podcast once a month, head over to patreon.com/challengers and pledge at the $5 Say My Name level. And a big thank you to all our other patrons at the various other pledge levels. last episode I talked about having a blank notebook for the episode.
Yes.
This week, I made sure to have my notebook out and took not a lot of notes, but I took notes.
Not copious, but...
I took notes at the store.
Okay.
And I specifically did a thing that I never do, is for every preview that I read during the week, I wrote it down so I would have a record because I never remember them when we're talking about them right here and right now.
Sure.
My notebook is at the store.
Oh, Patrick.
Left it out, open, at the store.
What a dingus.
I almost called Molly Jane and said, hey, take a photo of the... but I don't know what episode number it is, so I can't tell her what page to go to.
And so many pages are just filled with horrible things about Molly Jane, so you can't have her just flipping through it.
Oh, no, that's...
randomly.
I'm okay with that.
Oh, okay.
I don't write anything down that I wouldn't tell her. So I have a backup notebook full of...
Backup notes.
Oh, man. Yeah, literally, notes we just threw together for this. But I believe this is floor plan of blue.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it's this one.
Definitely hang out of that. We might need it again.
Just to show you what notebook I had to grab. What does this say? Is this episode 108?
Oh, God.
DC streaming, Batman Day, past, present, Batman Damned. Okay, that's not 108.
Yeah.
Chelsea, 50 plus fart. Oh man! Oh, these were words I was trying to learn. Okyaguch. What? That's is that Icelandic?
I don't know.
I can't remember what that meant.
This isn't my notebook.
We know what needs to be done. Only you will know if we did it. Wow. And then here's a DVR schedule.
Oh, wow. And channel numbers.
Yeah.
Remember channel numbers, Patrick?
Right? Okay. Anyway, let's go back to this page here.
Okay.
One of the things I remember I had written down, but I don't have here. Oh, I did. You know what? I wanted to touch on Loot Crate since you brought it up.
Okay.
Like the idea of those. So many subscription boxes exist now all over the world.
They do.
For every topic. Every week I feel like we're getting emails from Pro Wrestling Tees about their crates and whatever.
True.
And now they've started the Elite Crate. You know, the AEW crates. And I'll be damned if the first one I didn't look at it and go, I actually liked everything in here. But I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
I'm if I sat down and made a list of every recurring monthly charge for a subscription service, whether it be for a streaming service on TV or a website plugin or I was going to say Honor Club, but that's a streaming service.
like Patreon or a membership. Or
every single thing. I know
Sure.
Instagram is flooded with ads for services that you can... It'll tell you what you're paying and how much is too much. And it's all too much.
That's 2023. No one wants to sell you one thing that you own. They want to sell you access to something recurring forever.
You know, Apple Music, things like that. And
I got so many monthly subscriptions.
the idea of not having Apple Music.
Sure.
But what is that? $10 a month?
Mine's weird because it's bundled in with a bunch of other things.
Okay.
So I don't even know anymore.
It's just,
which is exactly what they want. They want me to not know exactly what I'm paying.
But like the idea of when I finally broke down and said, yeah, I'll get Apple Music, I didn't have as many subscription services, but also I stopped getting physical music media. I stopped getting CDs.
Yeah.
And I stopped owning the things that I play.
Sure.
So
Same here.
if I ever decide I don't want Apple Music anymore, my library is going to revert back to
that's exactly what they
2019.
want. They want it to be a thing where they're basically holding your music fandom hostage, where you can't ever cut that cord.
I'm paying for this for the rest of my life.
Pretty much.
We offered a yearly subscription service, Challengers Prime.
We did, yeah. That was a how many years ago was that?
I don't remember,
7 years
but
ago,
it was
probably.
a thing that we talked about and we had up in the store. And
yeah, we were basically what had happened. We were having dinner with another retailer, and we were talking about the idea of essentially what we're still talking about now in 2023, which is blanket pre-order discounts, and how that doesn't make a lot of sense, and how you're kind of giving money away, and how to kind of rethink that. And I can't remember exactly what the pathway was to get there, but the idea at the end point of that dinner discussion was basically Amazon Prime, more or less, where you're charging a yearly membership fee, and that gets you certain perks. So I think the idea for Challengers Prime was $100 a year, and that gets you, I'm trying to think of what it was, like 10% off everything in the store, I think?
Yeah. It was a blanket discount off of everything.
Yeah, but it was basically the pre-orders would stay the same, but you would not get a discount. But if you wanted to buy Challengers Prime, you would get your discount off of everything, not just your held books.
Right.
For the year. And we put a thing in the window, and we put signs up, and we put it in emails.
But also, it wouldn't jump you to the front of the line for Free Comic Book Day or signings.
We were talking about additional perks, but I don't think we ever nailed down exactly what that would look like.
Physical, but...
Right. Like, there would be perks. But
yeah.
End of the day, no one bid on it. And mostly because we didn't get rid of the discount for the subscription service. So it was basically a thing of like, you could do the subscription service and you get 10% off everything you pre-order, or you could do Challengers Prime, which would be 10% off of everything, or you could do both. And but no one wanted to even the idea of paying for a discount at that point was just no one was interested.
And it's funny how that has resurfaced now,
right?
When it's like, no, that was the thing we offered years ago,
yeah.
And now, no, we starting with, by the time you listen to this episode, well, that's not true for patrons, the reward system goes into effect.
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday, May 1st. I got to start tomorrow night. I got to start testing it out. So hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything will go fine. It won't be a big deal. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Technology, you never know.
I got to say, it is almost been, as predicted by other retailers, a unanimous, yeah, we're fine with it.
Some of it, I think, is I don't know that no one reads the emails, or a lot of people do not read the emails. I shouldn't say no one.
We can look up and see how many people read the emails.
It's not a lot. And as such, I don't know how many people are aware of the change, or we'll maybe find out soon. Yeah. Hopefully it won't be a big deal. I would assume most people, because it's a 10% discount, I think for the people who it's most going to affect, they're the people who read the emails and they're aware of this and they're okay with it or going to be okay with it or whatever. And the people who don't read the emails are generally people that we're talking about, dimes and quarters. You know what I mean?
Or don't even realize they get a discount.
Like the amount of money that they are transitioning away from on a pre-order discount towards a rewards program is not worth even reading an email to find out about.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm interested to see what it means for subscribers, if it increases the frequency of people coming in, which is a main thing that we'd love to see go up over the next few months, and if it's going to be an incentive to the people on the website, if that's going to end up making people look to Challengers a little bit more early in their shopping process. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. We'll definitely talk about it on the website.
I was going to say, is there any way we could have information about it, or like a little message bar across?
So one of the things that, again, this is assuming it all works the way it's supposed to. One of the things that we can do with it,
Challengers, everything goes our way.
Everything, especially with Shopify. One of the things that drops on the page is you put in a little plugin and you decide where it's going to go. And so after every single item, it'll say, hey, you'll earn X amount of points if you buy this item. And then clicking that will lead to, here's how the point system works, here's how everything works.
That's clever.
And then there's a little button on every page that is just a little window that'll open up and it'll say, here's the points program, here's everything else.
Great.
So it should.
That's only $2,000 a month as a plugin?
No. We're looking at a very economical solution, and if that one doesn't work, we have to go to a slightly less economical solution and hope that one works.
And then and then the point system drops from one. The redemption stays the same, but it goes to each dollar you spend is worth half a point.
We'll see. We'll see. It'll be interesting to talk about it in the next episode of Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast. I know we'll be talking about a lot of pre-Free Comic Day stuff, I think, at that point. But it'll be, hopefully we'll have a few days of the new rewards program under the belt.
I don't know. I think the next week or two will be a different recording schedule with us for potential guests.
Okay. Sure.
I'd say we'll find out, but everyone will find out together
Yeah.
at the same time when you go to listen. I'm just waiting for the day when Dow's like, oh, don't worry, we don't have to record. I did one already.
That's never going to happen.
You don't even have to edit it. It's all done.
It's never going to happen.
I already have the music files.
Nope.
I have the intro,
Nope.
the outro. I even plugged in the new patron update for you. Oh, Dal, you're such a giver.
Closest you're going to get to that is, don't worry about this week's episode. We're not doing it.
So there's a subtle change in the checkout function at the store. Not function, but process.
Procedure.
Yeah, there's something that makes life a little easier, or I guess informative for the customers. And this was a thing that Dal did entirely on his own.
Yeah, because I think it only bothered me. I don't know if it bothered anybody else, but it definitely bothered me.
It did always bother me that when, well, not bother me. I was aware of the fact that when we said to somebody, "Hey, your total is $64.32," they have no idea if we're making that up or not.
Well, so when we moved away from the
Whole display,
the computer PC register system, the Windows box, what came along with that was a pull display that would be a little LED readout that would tell you when, as you were scanning something, the name of the book and the price, and then at the end it would have a little total or subtotal, so you could look up at that and go, okay, I owe $28.15. With the new POS system that we got at the end of 2021, it's an iPad, and there's really no pull display for an iPad. Like there's nothing for it to plug into. There's nothing for it to communicate
nothing
with.
Customer facing.
Right, and Shopify POS doesn't have that functionality. There's not a thing in the hardware section that's for a pull display. What they do have is a thing called Customer View, which is a separate app, and you need specifically an Android tablet. It doesn't work on an Apple device. So while we have an extra Apple iPad mini, it wouldn't work on that, so we couldn't use that for it.
I like that Shopify has to be on an iPad.
They might have a thing in the Android store. We just never looked for that.
Okay.
I can't remember.
But the customer-facing thing has to be an Android.
Yeah, specifically, they only have it as an Android app. They don't have it as an Apple App Store app.
When you said it was an app, this isn't an extra monthly fee, is it?
It's free app.
Wait, I'm sorry.
From
Shopify. I don't understand how those words...
Understand...
Free app Shopify. I don't understand how that goes together.
Shopify, of their own volition, designed this app and then released it for free. Understand that.
I
put
literally
that in your
do
brain
not understand it.
and have your brain not explode from it. One of the things that I looked at it originally and didn't know if it'd be worthwhile, and more than anything that kept me from doing it for a long time was that the reviews for it on the Google Play Store are terrible.
Oh.
Like, I think it's got...
See, that sounds like a free Shopify app.
Right, it's a very Shopify app because, yes, it's free. The reviews are, it's terrible, it doesn't work right, it constantly loses connection, it's unbelievably bare bones, so on and so forth. But I was reaching a point where I'm like, I really dislike, like you said, Patrick, that we would only be able to communicate a total to people by saying it, and they would, maybe they didn't hear us right, maybe they didn't remember it as they were trying to get everything ready, and especially as when we were using Square as our only credit card processor, the Square terminal, because Square is a better company for hardware and software, has a little display on it that says, like, oh, here's what you owe. So when people would pay, they'd at least have a thing that would say, yes, this was $28.15. With Shopify's chipper, there's no screen on it.
It's a tiny little box.
So the entire interface...
It's like an oversized Matchbox.
With us ringing up somebody and cashing them out is a total black box for the consumer. They have no idea what's going on.
In this technologically based society where everything is designed to make things smarter and easier and have more knowledge at your fingertips, this whole checkout process is you completely in the dark as a customer.
And it had reached a point where I'm just like, I want us to have something that's consumer facing. I want us to have something that people can look at that has a total on it, that has the items on it, just basically the same technology we had pre-Shopify. I'd like to get that back. So I bought a very cheap 7-inch tablet from Amazon and set it up on Tuesday, and then Patrick helped me find a good spot for it, and now, yeah, I hope it worked today. I don't know. I wasn't working today. It was working Wednesday. And, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Most people didn't see it. The few people that did liked what they saw.
Yeah.
It would always, not always, but it would make me a little self-conscious when people are like, oh, wow, this is so cool, because it's like, this is the bare minimum you should expect from a retail establishment in the 21st century. Like, again, this is what we didn't have for the last 2 years, you know?
I can tell you, every time I'm buying groceries, and, you know, it's got the box, wherever you go, it has the same style of box to pay.
For the credit cards?
Yeah, to tap or swipe or insert or whatever. And the checkout person is usually very communicative about the total, and it's all on the screen, and I never pay attention to it. And every time after I get home, I'm like, wait, how much did I spend? I literally never look at it and never hear it, and it's always a surprise to me when I, like, oh, I need to record this receipt. It's like, oh, that's how much it was. Like, every step of the process, the information was available to me, and I just chose to disengage with it.
Sure.
We weren't giving people the choice to disengage.
No.
Now we are.
Well, and one of the slight problems with the disengagement that is innate is that, and this is the thing people complained about in the reviews for the app on the Google Play Store, there's an additional step in the process. One of the cool things that Customer View does as an app for the consumer is that it'll show you different things on the screen. So as you're being checked out, it'll have like a running total of the books that are being scanned or the things that are pulled into the cart from your Managed Comics account, and then a little running total at the bottom. Very similar to what we have on our screen as we're checking people out. When you get to like a subtotal section, for the store, like you'll get a little total on the screen, and the default is like, hey, give the cashier your card or use your card to pay. If we choose a different payment option, like cash, at the subtotal screen, the consumer will get a thing saying, oh, pay cash to the cashier or whatever. Once we total everybody out, we see a screen that says like, hey, if you want a receipt printed, emailed, or texted, you hit these buttons. The cool thing for Customer View is it shows it to the customer as well. So they get a thing where it says like, hey, how do you want your receipt? So if you want it printed, you just hit a button and it'll print it out on our end and we just hand it to you. Or if you want it texted or emailed, if those are in the system, like you hit that and it'll just send it. If it's not in the system, it'll prompt you to type in a phone number or an email. And at the bottom, a little thing that says, no thanks, no receipt. Nobody looks at that screen.
Right.
And for us, it's an additional button step because if we try to, we can still print out a receipt, we can do everything we need to. And when we get out of that transaction to go to the next one, we get a little warning that says, hey, the customer hasn't made a decision on their screen, so do you want to wait for them, or do you want to just, if you choose to complete it and they're trying to do something, it could screw them up, and it's just like, they walked away. They're done. So then we have to hit an additional button. So it's, because of this, either the customer hits a button or we hit an additional button. There's no way out of this to not hit an additional button.
Also, if the customer has to type their email address on the screen, depending on how forcefully they type, the structure that holds the tablet is maybe not the most sturdy.
No one's opted to do it yet, so we'll see what it looks like.
But it is interesting that no matter what, it's like, oh, here's this thing that's going to make, wow, what just happened? I'm used to recording this in the dark. What is this light turning on for?
A little too...
my goodness.
Too late in the afternoon.
Sorry, that was just for the lights on in the studio, and I was gradually getting used to getting darker in here. So that was very abrupt.
Don't want to do this in the dark.
Should we bring the tree back here to separate us?
I guess.
It does have a lovely home where it lives now, but it's never really turned on.
I understand.
So it just adds one extra step for us, which is basically the Challenger's motto.
Yeah, and it's fine.
One extra step.
I'm okay with an additional button I have to press if it allows for people to have a lot more information about their purchases. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, it was a good idea, and never anything you vocalized as bothering you.
I mean,
I don't think.
Probably not, because I didn't want to make, like, no one else seemed to care about it, and I didn't want to make it a thing of, like, should we do this? Should we have a discussion? It was just like, I'll just buy it out of pocket, and I will set it up, and if anyone hates it, we can take it down.
Who's going to hate it?
I meant, like, you or Molly Jane or anybody else.
I understand the first person you said. But does anyone else's opinion matter? That's where people listening have to decide, is that a joke? Or, they'd have to care enough to decide whether or not they wanted to. Boy, I sure wish I had those notes.
Yeah, that would have
Right?
helped out.
Like, I do have the list of books that the previews that I've read this week.
What'd you read?
But I don't know that it's the point of the podcast to talk about the previews.
We'll see. What'd you read?
Titans #1.
Yeah, I read Titans #1.
Yeah, you know what? Titans #1, solid.
It's a good book.
Yeah. It sets up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little bit weird to me because I feel like Nightwing is currently Titans.
Yeah,
Because
very much
it's been the Titans since issue 100.
Yeah.
And it's still a Titans thing. And with art not as good as Bruno Redondo or Nicola Scott.
Yeah. Travis Scott, I think is who's... No, not Travis Moore. Yes.
Fine art, but So Titans #1 is...
I wasn't reading Superman Son of Kal-El because I'm like, Travis Moore's kind of boring to me.
Right. Titans #1 is a good, solid superhero book start.
Yeah, it's not like a revelation or anything. There's nothing in there where it's like, oh my god, I can't believe they did X, Y, or Z. It's very much, hey, do you like the Titans? Would you like to spend time with your favorite Titans characters? Here's a book for that.
I do like the tree that grows in the middle of Titans Tower.
Yeah. It's a book that at least for the first issue, I would describe as very gentle. It's a very gentle book.
They're easing you into it.
It really wants you to it's very loving in its fandom for these characters.
One of the things I didn't realize was that Raven has short red hair.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't think I've read a book that Raven was in, not counting the last 3 issues of Nightwing, in years.
But also,
I don't know what she looks like.
That's not their look in the Cami Garcia books.
No, well, that's not the same kind.
But I'm just saying, that's my most recent exposure with
Sure.
her. But I mean, it is that continuity. They're taking story elements from that and bringing it into the main DC universe.
Sure.
The idea of Raven and Beast Boy being a couple. I don't know where that came from.
I have no idea.
I assume it came from those books.
I would consider myself a very big New Teen Titans fan, but I have, like the Legion of Superheroes, been very disconnected from it the last 5 or 6 years, probably at a minimum. Just a lot of iterations where I'm like, this is not working for me. Like this is the opposite of the feeling I get reading the Tom Taylor version. Where
Right.
I feel like I'm reading a book that people are
like
excited to tell a story, but don't have the kind of deep love for these characters that I do.
I didn't like the concept of Titans Academy.
Did or did not?
Did not.
Yeah, I thought it was okay as a concept, but it's just inherently like, all right, now I'm going to focus on all of these like Hogwarts but superhero characters, and that's not the book I want to read. I don't care as much about that as I do.
Especially because you're supposed to care about the new characters, the students.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to care about.
You can't name any of them.
No, I didn't stick with the book that long. Red X.
Good work.
But yeah, this is a book that is very much like, let's do the Teen Titans grow up and become superheroes in their own right story that you've always wanted us to do and we could never figure out how to do before. Like, having them replace the Justice League is such a huge step in the right direction for telling the kinds of stories that Titans fans have always wanted them to tell. I'm definitely on the ride, even though, yeah, nothing in issue 1 was like, this is going to change your life. It's more like, do you just want a good DC comic that you can feel good reading?
Yeah.
Like, this is one of those.
It doesn't feel like a Justice League book yet, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah, they do fight a villain that they've never fought before, but it's not a huge... it is huge. It's
yeah,
not,
definitely size-wise, yes.
It's not, like, they don't fight, like, Lex Luthor or The Key or whatever, you know? Also, it is the 18th or 19th DC book of the month to have Peacemaker in it.
Yeah.
I don't know how Peacemaker... I mean, I guess because of the TV show. And maybe DC Publishing wants to get on James Gunn's good side. But Peacemaker is in every goddamn DC comic.
And his personality is a little bit different in each one.
Yeah, like Peacemaker Tries Hard is the one you want to read because that's the one that's like the TV show and like the Suicide Squad movie. Everyone else's version of him is just like...
what if the Punisher worked for Nick Fury?
Kind of, yeah. I guess that's a good way to describe it. It's a lot less funny and a lot less fun and a lot less vulnerable It's a lot more, oh, this guy's just a giant asshole. Like,
Yeah.
all right, great. But yeah, it was weird reading Titans #1 and then like a couple days later reading Unstoppable Doom Patrol #2, and it's like, oh god, Peacemaker. He's everything. They put him in every book.
Yep.
No one communicates with anyone at that company.
There's also a scene where they try to recruit a new member to the Titans. And when it doesn't go the way they want it to, in my head I'm like, oh, well then just get this person instead. But they don't.
Yeah.
Or maybe they will.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it seemed like the most logical next step.
Sure.
But anyway, Titans. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It wasn't like... I'm trying to think of... I think all of Tom Taylor's superhero stuff starts in the same place where it's like, this is just good. It's not, again, like a revelation. It's not like, I've never seen these characters this way, or, oh my god, the art form has never worked for me in this way. It's just like, these are good superhero books. But then...
See, we're just not used to getting that from DC for a while.
It's the accumulation of it that really makes the Tom Taylor stuff work, is you start realizing, oh my god, I've been reading this book for like a year and a half, and every issue's been good. And I care about these characters, and I care where the story's going.
And they're on a roll with Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Titans. All of those #1s have been
Unstoppable Doom Patrol #1.
Enjoyable. Well, I was talking about ongoings, but still.
7 issues.
Enjoyable, if not surprisingly enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, some of the surprises are just like, man, I hate this character, but this book is pretty good. You know?
Yeah. Pick whatever word you want to come after the word green in that sentence. That is a concept that both Dal and Stella share.
Yeah.
For that same green-based character.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Teen Titans.
Okay.
Or Titans.
Or Titans.
I read Cyborg #1.
Me too.
Cyborg #1 is good.
Okay.
It's
I did not care for it.
It's not for me to say that I think it's unnecessary for a character to have a miniseries or a book or whatever.
Right.
But for first of all, I'm a big Tom Rainey fan.
Yeah, same here.
For Cyborg, who's had so many stops and starts, this book fits in with Titans well about as far as what he's doing, how he's doing it, and how he gets around.
Right.
Whenever there's a conceit, and for Titans, they've just got the ability to be wherever they need to be when they need to be there. Right. You know, it's like having Ileana on your team.
Yeah.
Oh, let's just put a portal through the dark dimension, we're good.
Right.
Through limbo, and we're okay.
Yes.
You know, so once getting somewhere isn't an issue, you can then take characters and put them in different places.
Right.
And...
So Cyborg can be in Detroit and also in Bloodhaven.
Yeah.
Because he's a mother box, so he can just go wherever he wants.
Yeah.
He can boom tube wherever he needs to go.
And they make a point of like, why do you think Cyborg would want to live in the Titans Tower?
Right.
You know? So yeah, I think that it's a good first issue and a good start to a series that wouldn't have been on my radar when they were announcing the Dawn of DC titles.
I didn't care for it, mostly because I thought it was overwritten, and it spends way too much time on a lot of psychological issues without really balancing that with like action and adventure. It gets very bogged down in daddy issues and
that
how
is the crux of that character.
How the community responds to Cyborg, and all of these things where it's like, this is good subtext, but the more you make it the text, the more I check out of the comic book. Because then it's like, I feel like I'm being lectured to. Like, when I have to get an entire page of someone I've never met before on Twitch or whatever running down Cyborg, it's like, a one panel of that would have been fine. An entire page of that is like, this is how you want to spend your first issue? Like, beating me over the head with it? So that was...
I didn't feel that way.
That was where it didn't work for me. Well, hopefully people will check out the first issue and let which of us know we're wrong.
Sure. I was a big fan of Dark Space's Wildfires.
Okay.
From IDW Originals, the Scott Snyder written...
Hayden Sherman.
Female firefighter prison heist comic. I almost said movie.
Eventually.
It could be a movie.
Eventually.
Yeah. I didn't understand the concept of Dark Spaces, but I liked the concept of this being, you know, the
a heist movie.
Yeah. Basically, women prisoners who act as firefighters to earn
Cheap labor.
money and to be productive during their prison sentence, who then stumble across a potential massive digital heist while fighting a fire. So when they announced a new Dark Spaces book, and is it called Good Deeds? I honestly can't remember because yeah.
I don't remember what I think it is.
So I read that one.
Okay.
And I don't obviously like Dark Spaces is just like calling it Tsunami or Vertigo or something, right? Like it's
it's not an imprint, but it's like a franchise. I don't know what you
thematic
call it.
franchise. So there's no connection that I'm aware of, and
It's weird that not to have a little segue or a little digression. There's not really a lot of that in comics that I can think of, where it's like, here's a little umbrella for like these books, but there's not a consistent genre or creative team or whatever, and it's not a publisher because the publisher already exists. Like IDW is a thing, and IDW Originals is a subsection of that, and then Dark Spaces is kind of another subsection of that. But what
You'd have
links
to
them
indent
together
like a
is
third time.
that they put Dark Spaces in the front of it.
yeah,
Like, okay, I don't know. It's very confusing to me.
it's a mother and a daughter starting over in a new town and rehabbing a diner, and the daughter not fitting in well at school, and there's more to it than that, but it is, as far as first issues go, it's like wildfires immediately hooked me. I'm like, this I like because I'm a big heist person fan.
Sure.
And when you can give me a good heist in a comic, that is a much harder thing, I think, to achieve than in a novel or a TV show or a movie. I had no problems with this first issue of Good Deeds. I have no idea what it's about or where it's going.
Oh, no.
And I don't know.
That is a problem of a lot of first issues from new writers, is just a sense of like, you are like, this is not chapter 1 of 6. This is your trailer.
Yeah.
Like, you have to tell me what this is and why I want to keep at it. Not, well, I can give you a sixth of the story because the other 5/6 will be coming later. Yeah, not to me because I'm not going to buy them.
Right.
It is a thing that the best comic writers know. They know that, like, issue 1, we got, like, Titans #1.
Hit the ground running.
Titans #1 not only gives you these characters, but gives you an initial thing that, like, a general thing that they're going to have to do, be the new Justice League, but then a specific to the Titans thing that they have to do in the first storyline that is hugely important to them as a group of characters.
Yeah.
Like, yep, I could tell you what that is. I don't want to because I want people to read the book and find out. But like a lot of creator-owned stuff doesn't have that. It doesn't have the thing in like the first issue where it's like, what is the book? I can read a solicit text. In the first issue, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? What is the story? Where is it going? What genre is it in? What is appealing about it? I don't know. It's the easiest thing that people miss constantly in this medium. Constantly.
I think it's really hard to create a concept from nothing to compete in this landscape to get people to come back month after month. And that leads me into Antarctica.
Yes.
From Image.
Sure. In the new catalog.
I read the first 3 issues of that.
How was it?
I'm torn when I'm talking about these books because I'm never going to bring up a book I don't think has merit.
Sure.
I'm never going to bring up a book I think people aren't going to like.
Yeah, you're not going to bring up a book on the podcast just to say, like, don't read this.
Right. But
that's cruel.
One of my current favorite sayings for people who are looking for stuff to buy is, there's a lot of really good books out right now. Unfortunately, you can only afford to buy the great ones.
Okay.
And even to me, who has the ability to read more comics than, say, the average customer does.
Sure, same here.
I fall off of books so quickly.
Oh man, same here. Immediately.
I think you fall off faster than I do.
I do.
But you
I
also
am very ruthless with books where if issue 1 doesn't really grab me, I'm not like, I'll read 2 and 3. Like, no, I already know what I need to know to sell the book. So I can only, at issue 2 and onward is, am I actually enjoying this? And a lot of stuff I just don't.
Yeah, and you're also, with a few exceptions, you only read the the digital version of the first issue.
Right.
If you want to keep reading, you read them when they come in print.
Yeah, mostly because like I've run into problems where like I'll read the first 3 in digital and then it's like, okay,
6 months
issue
later,
4 in print is going to come out in 5 months.
Yeah.
And by that point, I either won't remember what I read or won't care enough to continue. So yeah, I think it was like for Unstoppable Doom Patrol #2. I'm like, I do not want to read the digital copy because I want to read it in print when it comes out.
See,
and I loved issue 2.
I don't mind doing that for a miniseries because if they're going to keep giving us the previews, then I'm reading it in the same space of time.
2 does a thing right away, and like the title page, double page spread for issue 2 of Unstoppable Doom Patrol, pages 2 and 3, has Chris Burnham drawing like the cutaway layout
of the headquarters.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh man, I read those Fantastic Four comics that would have the little thing where it's like, oh, here's where someone's bedroom is, and it's like, oh, here's where the living quarters are, and here's the training area, and here's like the launch pad or like the vehicle hangar.
All the Elliot R. Brown breakout things
that
he would do, all the deconstructions.
Kirby did it right away though, man. It was great. It was so cool to see like the Baxter building, and it's just like, yeah. I don't know if your layout makes any sense, Mr. Kirby, but this looks great. As a child, I would love to live there.
So, going back to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Antarctica. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I didn't... Again, I wasn't really clear on what they're doing, and there's a lot of story leaps that the characters take that we don't witness. Mm-hmm. You just assume, like, okay, they got from point A to point D.
Okay.
We didn't need to see them go to B and C or whatever.
Sure.
And it's a clever, like, what's happening is fairly interesting.
Okay. It's measured praise.
There's a lot of daddy issues in this book as well.
Cool. My favorite.
Did you say measured praise?
I did.
It's measured praise. Uh-huh. Yeah, like, I never want to talk about a book that says to a person, hey, don't buy this.
Right.
Like, just, and I don't mean saying that. I mean, I don't want to sound not excited by a book.
Sure.
People put a lot of hard work and effort into these books.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, man. So, side note, there was let's say, psychological professional.
Okay.
A doctor, but not a MD, who emailed us about carrying their 7-volume hardcover graphic novel series in the store.
I don't remember in that.
And sent us links to their Amazon pages. And I looked at all 7 books, and I couldn't tell if they were prose with spot illustrations or illustrated books or graphic novels. It turns out they're a little of everything. There's some graphic novel content, and then there's just some illustrated text.
Okay.
But it's all about, it's based in Chicago, an urban family where each member gets a superpower and how it affects the community and the people around them. And do you remember a local book we carried called, like, Amazon, like 3 A's?
Not really.
Okay. The art was very much like that.
Okay.
And after looking at these, and I couldn't really tell what kind of book they were, I chose to do that time-honored tradition of ignoring the email.
Sure.
Well, apparently, that doctor had called the store and talked to someone who said, oh, bring your books in. So they came in on Wednesday while you were out.
Oh, okay.
And I think I was ringing up Max at the time. So Molly was dealing with them, and Molly pitched the whole consignment thing. And I wanted to jump in and say, like, I don't know how to say to somebody, no, we don't want your books.
Right. It's ever since we've said, like, hey, we're not just taking any consignment book that people want to bring in, we'll buy stuff that we think we can carry. Along with that, we then had to say to people, we don't want to carry your book. And that sucks.
These were hardcovers.
It's unpleasant.
And, fairly pricey because they're hardcovers.
Yeah.
But I couldn't let the conversation go without jumping in and just saying, hey, I just want you to know that regardless of how good any local books are, we have a horrible track record with local books selling. Mm-hmm. Like I could show you the local section. You can see a lot of great books there. We rarely, if ever, move any local books.
Right.
So you would be giving us your inventory hoping to sell when they're probably not going to sell.
Right.
And because Molly was emphasizing the 50-50 split, this professional was not that keen. He said, well, let me think. Let me take the books, but let me just think about it. Which I think is their way of saying, I don't want to do this.
Sure.
Which is great. But there's that fine line of I know how much effort and work you put into this, and I know what this book means to you, and I don't regret my time having read those three first issues of the series, and I'm genuinely interested to see how the series plays out. But by the time number 4 comes out in print, I will have forgotten most of it.
It's true.
And I probably won't get back to it. And again, I never want to talk about a book and be like, yeah, I don't think it's worth your money.
Right.
But I think people need to be discerning with their money. But however, that being said, there are so many books people buy from us that I'm like, I'd never buy that. And there's plenty of books that I would buy that people don't buy. So
Sure.
it's all taste, it's all opinion. It doesn't matter. You don't have to read what I read. I will champion the things I love. For example, like Dal said this week, Peacemaker Tries Hard. Fantastic.
It's so good.
A+.
It's so
Loved
good.
it. Really enjoyed Black Cat Social Club from last week, a full-length graphic novel from Humanoids.
Okay.
About a band of witches who sell their souls to the devil to not necessarily get fame, but to get power. And I'm generalizing it, but it's a very fun, upbeat book where music is power, and it's bright, colorful. The art is fun, and I enjoyed engaging with that book.
Nice.
So that's why I'm happy to point people toward it.
Sure.
To be able to say, look, here's the thing, like this is the thing you may not know about. And when they first sent a press release or did whatever for Antarctica, I cannot not stumble over that word, that continent. It was the kind of thing where I'm like, meh, I'm not that interested in. But so is Indigo Children, and we love it.
Yeah. That's a great book, too.
So yeah, those were, and I assume you didn't read either of those.
Antarctica?
Or Dark Spaces.
Good Deeds? No.
And I read that one because they just kept sending the previews over
Yeah.
and over.
One of the things that I don't hold against the content of Good Deeds, but that definitely like irked me a little bit with IDW's marketing on it, is that...
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Well, Dark Spaces Wildfires was Scott Snyder, and that's a big deal, and Hayden Sherman, who'd done a bunch of stuff.
2 books simultaneously.
But then
being published.
Good Deeds, the next Dark Spaces book, is by 2 creators that haven't really done anything in comics, which is not,
a prerequisite.
Yeah, everyone starts somewhere. Why not here? That's fine. But IDW's promotion for it, like, one of the things we say over and over again is that if you want me to carry your first issue, please make it returnable. The only way I can really get behind a book that does not have a built-in audience or a lot of heat behind it is to make it returnable. Make it something where if I read the solicit or I see the cover, I think, man, people are missing out on this. This is going to be good. I want to have it on the shelves. If you make it returnable, I can do that. If you don't make it returnable, I really have to look at it and say, like, all right, what are the odds of me being able to get people into this? And what is the current interest in it? And if it's, very low or nil, which it is for a lot of books, even from bigger publishers that don't have creative teams or concepts or IPs that are well known, I have to pick a lower number. And IDW's promotional gambit for Good Deeds number 1 is, hey, if you order over 10 copies, you get additional discount points. So each issue gets a little bit more profitable to sell. And it's like, that only works if I sell them.
Yeah.
So a book that I would maybe order 3 or 4 copies of for the shelf, you're telling me if I order 10, which is like 5 or 6 more than I thought I was going to, each of those I'll make, let's see if I can do the math on it, an additional like 10 cents, maybe?
Fill those coffers.
Yeah. And that's if I sell them. If I don't, if those additional copies go unsold like I expect them to, now you've lost me money. Like, I might as well have not carried the book at all.
Yeah, but 10 cents less than you would have lost if you paid
ridiculous.
full price for it.
Like, when Marvel or DC or whoever would do that for huge books. If Marvel was doing it for Ultimate Invasion, it's like, fine, I can sort of understand it, even though that's not my favorite, like, promotional option. But when you're doing it for books where it's like, and they're doing like 1 in 75 variants, for what?
Yeah.
Baffling to me. Like, it was such a turnoff, and it's not the creator's fault. They have no say in this, but IDW opting that this was the way they would get people to try out the book, like, no, you have completely miscalculated.
And look what happens when they do.
I don't want to say that.
I'm just saying we don't sell the books.
Oh, okay.
We hope to see all of you, every single person who's listening to my voice right now, at Challengers on Free Comic Book Day, Saturday, May 6th. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.